Good evening and welcome to the March. Thanks, Barb. Good evening and welcome to the March 16, 2021 Gilroy Central School District Board of Education meeting. Would you all please silence and recite the pledge? I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, tonight we'll start with our public comment, and we have 11 public comments, so Gloria Tohilt and I are going to take turns reading them. And so do you want to go ahead and start, Gloria, number one?
Yes. First letter, Dear Guilderland Board of Education, I write to you as a concerned parent from the Guilderland Central School District. Education throughout our state and country is being significantly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. My concern is that I believe that the vital music curriculum in our district is being additionally and unnecessarily impacted by recommendations in New York State's reopening plan. Recently, Governor Cuomo lifted restrictions on organized high-risk extracurricular sports, allowing them to resume practices with the goal of participating in games and contests. I'm happy that students are being given the opportunity to return to activities they enjoy, but I must ask that students studying music, drama, and dance as curricular subjects not be forgotten. The National Federation of State High School The benefits of a comprehensive sequential music education have been well documented and named specifically among the well-rounded courses delineated in the ESSA law of 2015. The National Federation of State High School Associations commissioned a study on aerosol emissions in the performing arts. This research was conducted at the University of Colorado Boulder and the University of Maryland. The study recommended 6 feet of distance between performing musicians with appropriate use of masks and bell covers for wind instruments. Research has led to similar findings in studies conducted at Clemson University, University of Minnesota, Johns Hopkins University, and Colorado State University. I believe that we should follow the science as it pertains to music classes. I have 2 children in high school who are very involved in the music program at Guilderland High School. They are eager to return to practicing and performing music in a better space. I fully support allowing students to use 6 feet of social distancing with masks and bell covers for singing and playing wind instruments. This is an issue that is very important to our entire family. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Robin Winans and the incredibly dedicated and talented music teachers in Guilderland who have worked so hard and so creatively to keep music alive and well in the Guilderland School District. This change will only serve to help their efforts in such an important field of study. Thank you, Julie Petty.
Okay, thanks, Gloria. I'll read the second letter. I write to you as a concerned parent from the Guilderland Central School District. Education throughout our state and country is being significantly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. My concern is that I believe that the vital music program in our district is being additionally and unnecessarily impacted by recommendations in New York State's reopening plan. Dr. David Brown, president of the NISMA, has written to the governor, commissioner, and state health department asking that a committee be created to examine recommendations put forth last summer that there be 12 feet of separation between students playing wind instruments or singing. This is in comparison to the 6 feet requirements for all the other curricular classes. Many music programs across the state have been eliminated or significantly curtailed due to the lack of space necessary to meet state recommendations. Recently, Governor Cuomo lifted restrictions on organized extracurricular sports, allowing them to resume practices with the goal of participating in games and contests. I'm happy that students are being given the opportunity to return to activities they enjoy, but I must ask that students studying music, drama, and dance as curricular subjects not be forgotten. The benefits of a comprehensive sequential music education have been well documented and named, specifically among the well-rounded courses delineated in the ESSA law of 2015. The National Federation of State High School Associations commissioned a study on aerosol emissions in the performing arts. This is the same thing, the same data that Gloria just read. In closing, that I ask that you join me in my request to Governor Cuomo, Commissioner Rosa, Chancellor Young, and representatives from the New York State Health Department to create a task force charged with studying the 12-foot recommendation per the request of Dr. David Brown, the NISMA president. It is my understanding that only 6 feet is mandated by DOH and that 12 feet was a guideline or suggestion for musician students this fall, and GCSD chose to follow the guideline. But this topic has not been addressed again by DOH. In the meantime, I'm watching high school sports on TV, and the basketball players are much closer than 6 feet with masks on. Granted, but they seem to have been allowed to be close together. So 6 feet for musical students seems quite reasonable to me. Personally, my son is really missing performing. I believe 6 feet instead of 12 feet will allow for some form of performances soon, I imagine. Will you help to find a way to keep the music alive in the Gildan Central School District and in the lives of all the children that find the performing arts to be a vital part of their education? Thank you. Sincerely, Elaine Tresher. Apologize if I pronounce the name wrong. Go ahead, Gloria.
I'll read the next letter. As the winter sports season comes to a close, we would like to share our family's positive experience with the Guilderland Wrestling program. Our daughter was a member of the modified wrestling team in 7th grade pre-COVID and 8th grade during COVID. Although there were no official matches this year, the coach live streamed 2 of the practices toward the end of so the families could watch. We send our deepest gratitude to all of the wrestling coaches, as we know they work together as a team to create a meaningful and positive experience for all wrestlers. We are sharing this with you for few reasons. Our family is grateful for your efforts to keep wrestling going this year. Although it was a short season, our daughter gained a lot from the experience in a safe environment. The wrestling coaches have an ability to bring out more than just skills in the sport, and we are so glad that our daughter had this experience. Lastly, we are sharing this because we had to advocate for her to participate in wrestling last year. She was questioned by the nurse when she handed in her form. Although the boys on the team were not required to do so, she took an APP test where the PE teacher told her she wasn't going to make it and it didn't think wrestling would be a good idea for her. She joined the team anyway because it was something she wanted to do. The other wrestlers were welcoming to her and cheered her on during her matches. Jeremy Barris, his coaching and attitude on and off the mat helped her grow as a wrestler and a person. She ended this season as a leader on the team, more self-confident and ready to tackle whatever lies ahead, regardless of roadblocks that are put in her way. This experience was important to her, and I hope much can be learned from her growth in that we can stop putting up roadblocks for other girls. Amy Horalchuk.
Okay, this is public comment number 4. It says, we are very pleased to see that there is a revised school year calendar that has school starting after the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah. Thank you to Superintendent Wiles for taking this issue seriously and for the effort involved in making this revision. While the revised calendar appears to make September 8th a conference day, we hope any potential difficulty for Jewish faculty and staff will be somehow minimized by providing flexibility for those who need or want the day off. We hope the revised calendar will be approved so families will not have to choose between observing one of the holiest days on the Jewish calendar and the first day of school. We are grateful for your thoughtful consideration. Laura Castle and Michael C. Ryder, parents of Jonah C. Ryder, Westmere second grader.
Hello, I understand that the Board of Education is considering the 2021-2022 calendar. I'd like to voice my opinion that Guilderland Central School District should maintain opening Tuesday, September 7th. I'm aware and sensitive to the fact that this date is also Rosh Hashanah. It's my understanding that families who celebrate the holiday receive an excused absence when the child misses a day of school due to religious observance. I think this is fair and reasonable. Thank you, Emily DiBartolomeo.
Okay, public comment number 6. Hello, I would like to ask what is happening with the seniors and the events? What is going on with senior prom and graduation? They have lost out on so many events junior and senior year, and it feels like no conversations are being had to help them something positive to look forward to and positive memories despite all that is going on. Elizabeth Leadingham.
Comment number 7. What are you doing with the senior class money since they won't have a senior trip, senior prom, and probably not a proper graduation? The money should be used to pay for seniors' yearbooks, which are $90, and there won't be that much in it. No sports, no clubs, no junior or senior prom from last year, and their caps and gowns could be paid for. They earn the money through fundraisers, and they should get something out of it. Diane Swanson.
Okay, public comment number 8. My name is Corey Tikinski, and I am the Gilderland Men's Lacrosse Booster Club president. A little more than 1 year ago, members of my board, along with the women's lacrosse and field hockey programs, brought forth an initiative to bring a synthetic turf sports field to Gilderland. After some consideration, you explained that this was a cause that would have to be tabled until next budget year. And while we have all had to deal with extraordinary circumstances in the past 12 months, please know that our collective beliefs, desires, and needs for a new turf field have remained intact. Knowing that the school will embark on a construction project to replace the track this summer, we feel the time is right to explore the replacement of the sports field at the same time. We remain available to meet with the board or its delegates to discuss the merits of adding this important amenity to the school grounds and our community. Thank you, Corey Dukinski.
Comment number 9. We want to take this opportunity to recognize and thank the coaches for making this year's indoor season happen in spite of COVID-19. With this, we would also like to thank Dave Austin and the board. This year was the first ever for winter track. As you know, a typical indoor track season was not possible this year, but this taught us all a valuable lesson on resiliency. Our coaches truly went above and beyond to provide our children with a winter track season. And it was all outside. From braving the fierce winds and low temperatures to shoveling the outdoor track, our coaches showed up daily to provide a season for our athletes. They even provided competition in the form of inter-team meets and went so far as to arrange 2 meets with other willing available schools. The normalcy and consistency that is provided by being able to attend daily practices cannot be overstated. While sports, and specifically track and cross country, have always played an important role in our family, this year opened our eyes to the magnitude of how extracurricular activities play in the well-being of each of us as individuals. We are appreciative of the tenacity in not canceling, but instead reimagining in order to make both the cross country and winter track season occur. We ask that you continue to be safe. Push forward using this as a backdrop in your decision-making on next steps, such as the participation of spectators and other difficult decisions that lay ahead. Once again, we appreciate the willingness of all involved to face the challenges and make it happen, and so do your student athletes. Jason and Alicia Thompson.
Okay, public comment number 10. This comment is 5 pages long, so the full letter will be on the public agenda. So I'm just going to read part.
Gloria, do you want to read it just in case she's gone for a little while?
I only have the full, I have the full 5 pages. She didn't mark it off at all because she was going to read that one.
Gloria, why don't you read 11? Or wasn't there one more?
I would just say read the letter. I mean, we've read other long letters
Excuse me?
before. I mean, why don't we just read
Okay.
it as it's written?
Dear board members, we are writing in regard to the recent.
We could cut it off you could just read until we hit the 5
Go ahead.
minutes.
Cut it off.
We are writing in regard to the recently formed Gilderland Equity and Diversity Committee. As a bit of background for members of the district that are not aware of the committee or its purpose, the committee was formed in the late 2020, according to Dr. Wiles, The purpose of the committee is to focus on equity and diversity in our community. Further, Dr. Wiles stated the purpose of the committee is to make Guilderland a place where everyone feels safe and valued. So far, that committee has held 3 virtual meetings. The overall committee meetings are live streamed to the public. However, the group also has a steering committee and multiple subcommittees that meet and then report back to the entire committee. We find it troubling that the steering and subcommittee meetings are not made public, as a great deal of the discussion relative to the overall direction occurs in these groups. As such, in the spirit of transparency, the members of the Guilderland community deserve to see the full discussion that is occurring. The subcommittee meeting could be easily recorded and posted for public viewing. We have watched the committee meetings and have been concerned with the direction in which the committee is heading. More specifically, committee members were required to read an opinion piece from a gentleman called Denamani Farley. As a bit of background, Mr. Farley is a local activist who speaks and writes on race relations. He is self-proclaimed influential community leader who founded Common Thread Consultants, an organization that profits from selling diversity training to educational institutions. The article is titled, "You Push, We Steer, Power Dynamics in Anti-Racism Work." We encourage everyone to not only read it, but also research Common Thread Consultants as commonthreadconsultants.com. It is important to note that in the article, Mr. Farley claims that American society is a society whose white supremacist foundations remain intact, and that we cannot center whiteness in a movement to dismantle the structures of white supremacy. He goes on to state that disrupting this dynamic is essential to progress within the institution, and cautions the reader about gatekeeping behaviors. We feel this by automatically labeling anyone who offers a dissenting opinion a gatekeeper. Mr. Farley is suppressing the open exchange of thoughts and ideas on the topic of race relations. Thus, it is not coincidental that this very thing occurred at the most recent meeting of the Equity and Diversity Committee. We will discuss the specifics of the incident in more detail below. While Mr. Farley is certainly entitled to his own opinions on the topic of racism and diversity, should this opinion be viewed as doctrine, especially since Mr. Farley stands to gain financially from his ideas being implemented in our schools? It is also very troubling that no other balancing or dissenting options from Black leaders who do not agree with the views of Mr. Farley were presented for members to read, despite requests from a committee member to do so. So we ask the members of the board, how is promoting the notion that all white people are white supremacists and America is an irredeemable nation founded on racist ideas that date back to the colonial era going to heal race relations in our community? How does putting down one group help lift up another? Further, what scientific data exists to support the claim that white people living in our district today should feel a sense of guilt for the privilege of being white? The basis of these radical ideas neither lies in fact nor has any quantitative scientific evidence to substantiate the claims that are being made. And by taking this approach, the committee and the district are conflating education that is based upon historical facts and data with activism. In fact, these radical ideas do nothing to promote the understanding, acceptance, compassion, kindness, and empathy that all communities should benefit from. Contrarily, it only fuels the flames of hatred, racism, and bigotry, and as such is not unreasonable to see how it could lead to hateful actions being taken against white children. Are we being asked to accept the opinions of the author of White Fragility that all white people, whether they know it or not, are inherently racist, and persons of color, POCs, are systematically oppressed by the white people living within their community? Is it the district's plan to teach white children that they are inherently bad, i.e. racist, based upon the color of their skin, and or teach people of color within our community that they are not free to prosper in America because of their white friends and neighbors? We certainly hope not, as this would be in direct opposition to the notion presented by the great Dr. Martin Luther King that all people should be treated equally and judged by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. Tragically, the approach currently being taken by this committee only highlights our differences instead of focusing on what unites us, our humanity, and the kindness with which we all deserve to be treated. Education should not be indoctrination. Successful education is rooted in free thought, open expression of differing opinions and ideas, without fear of repercussion from those who may have opposing views on a particular topic. That is far from what is happening here. As evidence of that, many district parents with whom we have spoken strongly disagree with this type of activist approach being taken when it comes to the education of their children. However, they are afraid to speak up for fear that they will be labeled as a racist or a gatekeeper, according to Mr. Farley, for questioning the actions of the Equity and Diversity Committee when it comes to addressing race relations within our community. Some have even expressed that they worry about possible repercussions involving their children. Just that fact alone shows how divisive and counterproductive the current approach being undertaken by the committee actually is. Any approach that stifles open discussion and the free exchange of ideas should not be condoned or promoted by our school district. Another concern is that we have yet to be presented with any evidence to support the notion that widespread and systematic racism exists in the Guilderland School District. We have heard anecdotal stories of culturally insensitive comments made between students. And while those comments aren't acceptable and a system should be in place to handle the situation like that should it occur again, it is certainly not indicative of an endemic problem, and it is irresponsible for it to be extrapolated as such. Rather, it is more indicative of a lack of understanding of cultural differences and possibly even bullying, both things that we should work as a district to investigate. However, such isolated incidents should not be used to label every white person in the district as inherently white supremacist and declare that we live in a community that is systematically racist. Further, we do not deny that there are bigots among us, and every time bigotry rears its ugly head, it should be condemned, regardless of the skin color or nationality of the person committing the offense. But again, to attempt to indoctrinate all our children based solely on limited anecdotes and qualitative data is dangerous and will likely have disastrous repercussions on race relations within our precious and diverse community. It is also somewhat troubling that the Board of Education has empowered a single group of 20 handpicked individuals to be viewed as representative of the Guilderland community to the extent that they are in charge of policy decisions that they pertain to race relations. We understand the need for a committee to oversee the discussion of race relations among the many members of our community. That is not what is happening. The committee is unilaterally determining how race relations will be handled in our community going forward, and with extremely limited input from the public as a whole. And while public comments are read aloud, they are not ever formally addressed, and many of the questions posed remain unanswered. In fact, at the end of the third meeting, one of the members made this exact point, that the committee owes it to the people who submitted questions to address the concerns. Yet no action has been taken, and the committee continues to advance its agenda in the absence of public discourse. Further, at the beginning of February 24th meeting, Ms. Glavick stated that the steering committee met the previous Monday, a meeting which was not made public, and deliberately decided that race is an immediate focus of the committee, and with that, we have established that as a long-standing committee. Our goals and our focus will change as time continues for the best interests of our students and community within the district. But as of right now, our immediate focus is race, unquote. This is beyond troubling. Who selected the members of the steering committee and who granted them the authority to unilaterally determine that the direction of this committee will take? After Mr. Glavick's statement, a member of the committee who was not on the steering committee, Barbara Frederigo, questioned how without a vote it was determined that the committee would now focus solely upon race and not address the task that the committee was charged with, to investigate equity for all students within our community, including the disabled, the poor, and people of color. The initial response to Ms. Federigo's question came from Board of Ed President Seema Rivera. Dr. Rivera stated they could not address all issues at once and had to focus on one particular group, and race was chosen by the steering committee because it has never been addressed, and that it would be, quote, ignorant on our part to ignore that and not start with race, unquote. She added that the committee can't address all the groups at the same time because they will never get anything done, unquote. In one of the subcommittee meetings that same evening, Dr. Rivera commented that the question asked by Ms. Federigo at the beginning of the meeting seemed like a form of gatekeeping, referencing the aforementioned article by Mr. Farley. How does that type of labeling of others when they ask a valid question about the direction of the group is headed get one labeled a gatekeeper who is adverse to talking about race relations? Especially since Ms. Federigo made it clear that her comments that race should absolutely be one of the things that the committee discusses. To me, a comment like that is a form of bullying and serves only to suppress others from voicing their questions and concerns. Ms. Federigo replied to say that there has never been any data presented to demonstrate that discussion about racial injustice takes precedence over those about socioeconomic injustice, and further, that significant data do exist, showing that the poor and those on school lunch programs within our community are in significant need of assistance. Another member of the committee, Tibisay Hernandez, said, quote, race is a visible thing that signals different things to different people. Poverty is something that we can hide, whether it is by clothing, how we show up, it can be hidden. People don't necessarily know what your socioeconomic status is, unquote. As people who have devoted a significant amount of time, both personally and professionally, to helping the underserved, this comment was particularly offensive. You absolutely cannot hide poverty, and while Ms. Hernandez is entitled to voice her opinion on the topic, we'd like to ask her the following questions. Can a child hide the fact that he can't focus in class and his grades suffer because he is malnourished? Can a child hide that she doesn't have transportation to school events because her family does not own a car? Can a child hide that he cannot participate in extracurricular school events and sports because his family cannot afford the associated fees? Can a child hide that she cannot play a musical instrument because her family cannot afford to purchase one? Can a child hide the fact that his clothes are soiled or have an odor because his family can't afford to launder them? Clearly, they cannot. Moreover, to minimize the needs of one subset of our population in order to elevate the needs of another will not get us anywhere when it comes to addressing the inequalities that exist within our community. Ergo, it is not troubling that race relations will be a part of the discussion of the committee, rather that without any quantitative data to support it and without any input from members of our community, it was unilaterally determined by the steering committee that race relations will be the only topic discussed at this time. That this is especially concerning. I'm sorry, I lost my place. This is especially concerning in light of the fact that Guilderland Central School District data demonstrates other minority groups among us may be in need of greater assistance, most especially students in poverty. Finally, we ask the board to please reassure us that any discussions on race will be balanced by presenting contrasting views on the topic. More specifically, it is essential that works from Black scholars such as Rowe, Coleman, Hughes, Thomas Sowell, Wilfred Riley, and others who believe in the Martin Luther King Jr. approach to racial equality be offered in contrast to the anti-racist rhetoric espoused by Kendall and D'Angelo. In addition, it is essential that the committee facilitate open and honest dialogue that doesn't label people who offer differing opinions. Further, we request that all work done by the committee, including that done by the steering and subcommittees, is transparent to the community and be made as participatory as possible. In closing, we would like to remind the board that Congress enshrined these words in creating the Department of Education in 1979, quote, parents have the primary responsibility for the education of their children, and states, localities, and private institutions have the primary responsibility of supporting that parental role, unquote. As such, the voices of all parents must be heard. Sincerely, Michael K. DeLuke and Renee N. DeLuke.
Thank you, Gloria. Public comment number 11. Will we hope,
I'm gonna have you,
what's that?
can you do that, Seema? I don't have that on my list here.
Yes, I'm reading it, yep. Public comment number 11. Will we hopefully move forward reducing the distancing currently in place for performing group classes to 6 feet from 12 feet, now that the extracurricular athletics have been cleared to begin? When students are in close proximity to one another in wrestling or football or several of the other sports, it seems no different than playing a music instrument, when bell covers are in place to drastically reduce any airborne particles. The research and the CDC support 6 feet for singing and performing instruments. We hope the curricular music program can proceed with 6 feet instead of the current 12. Sincerely, Anne Manzella, parent of a grade 7 band member. And I think that is it, correct, with public comments?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thanks, Linda. Thanks, Lori, for helping me read them. I just wanted to briefly address the music comments. I think we're going to be discussing later in the agenda. And let me see what else was mentioned here. The sports. I don't think there were any questions about those, just comments.
Calendar.
The calendar, yep, thank you. The calendar is also going to be discussed later in the agenda. Let me go through this. The senior events, I'm wondering if we can follow up on this. I think someone had asked before, and there were 2 public comments about that tonight. So I don't know if we can ask Marie, if somebody at the, I don't know if there's a senior a teacher who's in charge of the senior class, or if there's PTA. I'm not sure who's in charge of the senior events.
So Dr. Rivera, I did talk with Mr. Piscatelli after the last public comment, and the planners are now in the brainstorming mode and are hopeful to plan all the kinds of special events that students are looking forward to. We're kind of in a holding pattern, waiting for guidance in terms of the numbers of people we can bring together, but it's in the works for sure.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wiles. So that is a senior class. We have the turf field. I don't know who's on business practices, but maybe you guys can, whoever's in that group can address this email and talk about it in that subcommittee. Who's the point person for business practice?
Yeah,
Judy?
I'm the chairman of that committee. We haven't met lately and we have not discussed that, but that would certainly be something at our next meeting that we will discuss.
Okay, thank you. Number 9, this is also sports. Number 10 from Dr. Mike DeLuke. I just wanted to mention that last time we emailed, I think we had 3 pages of questions, and instead of emailing questions going back and forth with answers, I invited him to come to one of the equity and diversity meetings, open invitation, and he didn't respond to that. So I'm just putting that out there again. Instead of looking up data points, probably some of them could be Googled, but I didn't want to just go back and forth in an email. And then number 11, again, is about the music, which we'll be talking about later. Any other comments before we move on? Oh, Blanca?
Are we not going to discuss or circle back to the letter from Ms. Ralchek? I just, I have some questions about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I didn't know if you want me to hold them till the end, but I was wondering, maybe Marie, if there's a way we could reach out, and I'd like some more information as to why the female student had to take a fitness test as opposed to the male athletes. And, I wonder if there's a policy or something I'm unaware of. And again, if you can't answer that now, that's fine. But I thought maybe I'd like us to circle back to that if possible.
I know someone on this call who can. So Mr. Johnson.
Sure. Blanca, the test that Dr. Hrolchek was talking about, the APP's athletic placement process, the process for females to participate in wrestling is called mixed competition. And so while it's not imperative that in this case, Amy's daughter passed the test, they're given it. It's a data point for to be used in making that decision. There's a mixed competition committee that looks at those requests. And wrestling is a boys sport as per New York State Public High School, but obviously allows females to wrestle. And wrestling is one of those sports that's obviously by weight. So we do have quite a few female wrestlers over the years who have participated in wrestling. But that's a mixed competition is through it's through New York State education. So we have to follow that process. And again, it's not imperative that the female wrestler passes the APP test. They have to be given it. And again, it's a data point to be used in making that decision on whether or not the recommendation for her to wrestle goes forward.
Okay, but did the male athletes have to do that too, or is it exclusively for females wanting to participate in a male, traditionally male sport?
Correct.
Okay,
the boys don't have to take the APP test. High school boys, middle school boys who want to participate at the high school level have to take the APP test.
Right. I have 2 daughters who, one is about to do that and the other one did, to play varsity in 7th grade. But I guess I was not aware of this. So it wasn't the district. It's like a state thing. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Seema, do you want me to discuss our shirts real quick?
Sure.
Okay. So to people who may be watching in the community, you may notice that some of us are matching today, and we are wearing these t-shirts, which are a fundraiser for two students who are fighting sarcoma. They are two of our Guilderland High School students, Jenna Mayer and Gabe Zulo, and I'm sorry if it's Jenna Meyer. And this fundraiser will be going on until March 22nd through Wicked Smart Apparel. So it says their names here and on the back as well. So we're trying to support them tonight.
Okay, thank you, Blanca. All right, moving on with the agenda, we have consent items. This includes the minutes from the March 2nd, 2021 meeting, CSE and CPSE recommendations, CPSE recommendations, personnel action, and the financials, A through, G. Can I have a motion to accept the consent items? Barb, second Judy. Any comments or questions on these? Oh, Barb, go ahead.
A question totally unrelated to that. I noticed most of the people have their cameras off today. Is that what we're expected to do? Usually when we're in a meeting, everybody's camera is on. Should they be off or should they be on? It's never happened before. We all have our cameras on.
Everybody's on, Barbara.
Everybody's on.
You're
You may be
kidding.
having
See,
some
all I'm seeing is SEMA.
You
have
may
it. Sorry, go ahead.
set it- Sorry, I think you might have to change the view. If you go to the
Okay.
little dots in the bottom
Yep.
right-hand corner, it says change layout. You can
Yep.
change it. Layout. Yeah.
I have it on tiled.
You may just have SEMA pinned or something. So we're all on.
and that-
Really? Okay.
Huh.
Am I on?
Yes.
You are. Oh, you weren't before, but you are now.
Really? And I still can't see the rest of you, but okay, I just didn't know if we were supposed to have it off for some reason, and I'm not doing anything different, but it's nice to see everybody, and all I'm seeing is little circles. Okay, thanks.
That's weird.
Oh, nice, Gloria. Okay, I
any-
didn't mean meeting, go ahead.
That's okay. Any other comments or questions on the consent items? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It passes 9-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have information items. We'll start with curriculum and instruction. Dr. Singleton?
Thank you, Dr. Rivera. I have a few updates from our art department and one recognition of a student who's receiving a recognition from Siena College. And I'll start with sharing with you that we have the annual Empire State Plaza Student Art Exhibition at grades K through 8 is now live. We have art teachers Tricia Zagrosser of Altamont and Farnsworth, Susan Bollinton of GES, and Ray Shower of Westmere all have student work in this exhibit. Their artwork was inspired by the Empire State Plaza collection, and the student work will be on display through the month of March. And you can find additional information at the link that is provided. And I'm also happy to share that art teacher Tom Pieko was honored at the National Art Education Technology Group Awards ceremony on February 27th. Tom was asked to create a pecha kucha to share how he has been using his the 3D laser printer that he purchased from a grant that he had received from the group. And there's a link to his presentation for your viewing pleasure. Important to note that Tom was the only grantee for this national grant. The technology group shared his presentation during the National Art Education Conference, which was held from March 4th through 8th. And one more bit of art news. I'm delighted to share that 5 of our GHS art students had their work selected for this year's High School Regional Art Exhibit. This is a prestigious show, and it is a true honor to be included. The students are Serena Garong of 11th grade. Her art teacher is Rebecca Fliss. Carrie Yamaguchi of 12th grade, also in Mrs. Fliss's class. Jennifer Cow of 10th grade, also in Mrs. Fliss's class. And Emily Salisbury of grade 10, who's in Meredith Beth's class. And Catherine Letterman of grade 12 in Mrs. Fliss's class. And The Albany Center Gallery is located at 488 Broadway, Suite 107, and the exhibit opens on March 25th, closes on April 16th. The gallery is open Tuesday through Saturday from 12 to 5, and they will follow their guidelines. They asked us to make sure we promote that, and there will be a reception for the artists along with their family and friends. It will be held virtually on March 25th. And my final item tonight, I want to extend congratulations to high school student Jessica Aranbua, who has been chosen to receive the Siena College Martin Luther King Courage Award for 2021. Jessica is one of 3 recipients selected from the region. And please see the attached letter from Siena College, which states that the Courage Awards honor young men and women in the Capital Region who have demonstrated personal courage by taking positive action against racism, prejudice, and bias-related violence in their community. Jessica is currently a fully remote student. Her teacher, Matt Pinchnot, was able to deliver the news to her via a Google Meet. And of course, we want to congratulate Jessica. Well done.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Singleton. Next, we have school business information. Neil?
Thank you. I have 2 items this evening. I'll start with an announcement first from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And it announced that it's extending free meals to all students 18 and under with no eligibility limits or requirements. Under this most recent extension, funding has been appropriated to allow the program to continue through September 30th, 2021. So that is good news for all of our students and families throughout the district. Second item, I want to share some information about the recent fire at Guilderland High School and give you an update on that. First, a little background. On Saturday afternoon, this past Saturday at 3:41 p.m., a fire alarm was triggered at Guilderland High School. Our fire alarm monitoring company immediately contacted local fire companies and the Director of Facilities, Cliff Nooney. Both Guilderland Center and Altamont Fire Companies responded. The fire was located in the West Building Computer Photography Lab. One staff member was in another part of the building at the time the alarm went off and immediately exited the building. When firefighters arrived, the room was filled with dense smoke and the hallway door was hot to the touch. Firefighters were quickly able to extinguish the fire that started in the back corner of the room and stayed localized to that area. However, the rest of the room sustained extensive smoke and heat damage. Custodial Supervisor Mitch Kartner Jr. was the first district staff member to arrive at the scene to assist, followed by Director of Facilities Cliff Nooney, Maintenance Team Leader Dave Willey, Maintenance Mechanic Mike Hurley, Custodial Worker Tom Cashdollar, and Photography Teacher Kyle Green. A claim was filed with the district's insurance carrier later that same evening and an adjuster assigned. The fire alarm company replaced the damaged smoke detectors in the lab that same evening, and as an extra precaution, Cliff Nooney instituted a fire watch overnight as well. An insurance adjuster arrived on Sunday morning, accompanied by Tech East Fire and Water Restoration to begin addressing the fire and smoke damage to the lab and adjoining areas. The cause of the fire is still under investigation by the Town of Guilderland Fire Prevention and Investigation Unit. The district is continuing to work with our insurance carrier and Tech East Water and Fire Restoration with the goal of reopening the photography lab for student use as soon as possible. Number of special thanks to be made, and that goes out to first responders from the Altamont and Guilderland Fire Companies and the Guilderland Police Department, Clifford Nooney, Mitch Kartner Jr., Dave Willey, Mike Hurley, Tom Cashdollar, Kyle Green, and the Guilderland Fire Prevention and Investigation Unit. And we really appreciate all of those that assisted. We rarely ever have a fire, so it is very unusual. And I think it speaks again to how schools are constructed in New York State and the efforts that are made to ensure that they are safe from all sorts of hazard, including fire, and are designed that way. So again, very limited exposure stayed within the one room in that area. We have concrete walls, concrete floors. It's harder for fire to travel, and extra ventilation system shut down. We have smoke alarms in all areas. So again, schools are expensive to construct, but they're also constructed for the purpose of keeping students and staff space, and those extra precautions certainly pay off in a situation like this. So again, we thank all of those involved as we continue to work to get this room reopened again for students.
Thank you, Neil. Does anybody have any questions? Well, thank you for that update. Next, we have Superintendent Information, Dr. Wiles.
Thank you, Dr. Rivera. I have several items, but before I start, I just want to call everyone's attention to the fact that 25 people were just awarded tenure this evening, or at least it will be effective later in the fall. And I want to congratulate those 25 individuals for this great accomplishment to become permanent members of the Guilderland family here. So I just wanted to congratulate everyone. My first item is, whoops, let me get to the right computer here, is an announcement about May 28th. This year, May 28th would have been our contingent holiday. It's the Friday before Memorial Day. However, we used 3 emergency closure days this year. So we will in fact be in session on May 28th. So I never enjoy delivering that news, but Mother Nature did not work in our favor this year. My next item is some terrific news about the upcoming production and presentation by the Guilderland Players. They will be presenting Little Women through a special arrangement with Musical Theater International. The musical is based in the book, with the book by Alan Nee, lyrics by Mindy Dickinson, and music by Jason Howland, is based on the novel by Louisa May Alcott. The performances will be streamed March 25th through 27th at 7 p.m. and on March 28th at 2 p.m. through the publisher's website. And the next part here is new information. We've recently learned how you can get your tickets. So tickets to the event will be available for pre-sale until March 21st for $11 plus some vendor fees. And you need to use the code PLAYERS52. This is the 52nd production of Guilderland Players. And the web address is there. I won't read it. And then beginning on March 22nd, tickets will be $12, also plus vendor fees. And all prices are for a one-time viewing. And I know Mr. Maycock and his team and our students are working incredibly hard to make this happen. And we're all really looking forward to watching this production. My next item is just a reminder that we now have a confirmed joint meeting with the Guilderland Public Library. That's going to be this Thursday, March 18th at 5:30 p.m. It will be a virtual meeting hosted on the WebEx platform. And I thank all of the board members who are participating. I've forwarded the link to you. And those include Gloria Toll-Hill, Judy Slack, Barbara Frederigo, and Luciano Alonzi. And the agenda has the following items. We're going to give a brief update on our respective capital projects. We'll talk a little bit about programmatic collaboration between the two organizations, and then our summer programming plans. So that's this Thursday at 5:30. And then the next topic is a revisiting of our 2021-2022 school calendar. As I know, I'll recall when we met last and presented the first draft of the calendar, we received some feedback from families who were concerned about having our first day of school on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. At the time, it was scheduled for September 8th as the first day of school. Since that time, we have really explored about a half a dozen different options in order to, first of all, meet 180 days, which is our kind of basic requirement that we have to do, but also to weigh the many, many interests and priorities and concerns of our many stakeholders. So the calendar that's presented tonight is a real balancing act, trying to recognize all of the things that we heard from our community. So the proposed calendar, which I'll open for discussion, has 180 days. It begins the school year with 3 conference days, September 1st, 2nd, and 8th. Students would begin the first day of school on Thursday, September 9th. We gain the September 8th conference day by moving the March 18th conference day from March up until September. So there would be no conference day in March. And then the other conference day change involves November 2nd. Typically, this is a conference day, but in most years, our elementary buildings do not participate in professional development. They hold parent-teacher conferences during that day. And this calendar would offer that for this year, our K-12 faculty would participate in professional development on that day. And we would build 2 additional half days into the fall schedule for parent-teacher conferences at the elementary level to happen. That gives us a total of 4 half days for conferences. I fully recognize that that can be a real challenge for families. We're going to try this year. We'll see how it goes. It's the proposal I bring forward in order to preserve as many things as we possibly can. In making that move, we are able to remain with our plan to close on September 16th, which is Yom Kippur. And it also allows us to be closed on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, which is also a day that means a lot to many people. So I open up to comments, questions, thoughts, with my thanks to all who threw ideas out as we tried to think this through.
I think you've may come to some wonderful, not compromises, but found ways to make things work in a very difficult year. When Labor Day is so late, it doesn't give us quite the flexibility that we have in other years. And to be able to solve all these problems and respect the Jewish faith that's so important to so many people, I think you've done a wonderful job. And hopefully we can get back next year to more time for the teachers for their days too. But thank you.
Thanks, Judy. Rebecca?
I agree with Judy. I don't think there's any perfect calendar this year. And I think this weds as many interests as possible. So I would support this calendar.
Thanks, Rebecca. Seema?
I was just going to say thank you for looking into all the options. I know that's really difficult, and I know it's no perfect solution. But if we are okay with it, I know not everybody put in their input yet. Can we suspend the rules and vote on it tonight, or would that? Because we don't meet until April, right?
I think it would be, if everyone is comfortable with this calendar, I think our community would greatly appreciate knowing what the plan is for next year. Gloria?
I'd like to echo my thanks to you for your creative problem solving. I think this was like the 15th reiteration of the calendar. I can't believe it. I know there's a number of stakeholders that you work on this calendar thing. Have you run that by those people?
I have, yeah.
I have no problem suspending the rules then.
Does anyone have an issue with suspending the rules and voting on this? If you have questions? All right, so can we go ahead and vote on, Marie, can we vote on this now? We don't have to wait until action.
Yeah, I think it would be fine. You just need a motion to suspend and then a motion to act.
Okay. So can I have a motion to suspend the rules so we can vote on this? Blanca, second Rebecca. All in favor?
Aye.
It passes 9-0. Can I have a motion to approve the new 21-22 proposed school calendar? Gloria, second. Barb? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0. Thank you.
Thank you all. And I'll just editorialize for a minute that, this year's calendar was really difficult, but I really took away from this a great appreciation for democracy, where if you have a tough problem and you keep poking at it, eventually you can come to some kind of a solution. As Rebecca said, it's not perfect, but I don't think if people pushed, we would have looked as hard as we did. So thank you to our community for helping us get to a better spot. So my last item is also a follow-up from our last meeting, and this is around our conversation with performing music and the CDC guidance that permits the reduction of the social distancing for singing and wind instruments to reduce from 12 feet to 6 feet, with the presumption that everyone's wearing masks and using bell covers and so on is appropriate. After the board met on that Tuesday and the following Friday, the Suburban Council of School Superintendents, we had our regular monthly meeting and had a presentation similar to the one that I had shared with you from the Suburban Council music supervisors. And there was a lot of positive energy around the possibility of pursuing this reduction in the social distancing, with the recognition that the CDC and the New York State guidance doesn't match on this particular topic. So a couple things followed from there. A number of us reached out to various contacts at the state level to encourage that. I know one of our letter writers tonight talked about that action as well. And then one of my colleagues reached out to the Albany County Department of Health to share the research and get some insight into it. And the feedback that was received and shared with all of us was that school districts can do this, but we need to do it with the understanding that should there be a positive case, we will be using the quarantining guidelines that were in effect 6 weeks ago, which said a positive case in a room, everyone is quarantined. You know, in recent weeks, that has relaxed in Albany County. So we were looking at within 6 feet without a mask for a sustained period of time. I have since, talked with my colleagues and other superintendents, and we're all okay with that. So we're going to, take a more leeway with what's allowed. We also need to be equally aggressive when we quarantine because we don't want to spread the virus. So that's what we've learned since. There is still discussion, I think, around the potential for seeing the state guidelines to change. I just don't know how quickly that will happen. And we're all feeling this crush of time as we're coming up on April, and there's real interest in having our students have some opportunity to sing and to perform before the school year ends. So I'll stop talking there and open to questions and comments. I think I saw Seema, then Rebecca.
I was just going to say that I know people feel differently about this, but maybe after we get input from everyone, we could possibly suspend the rules and vote on this because of timing. I think we meet again in March for the budget presentation, and then there's April break. So there's really not that much time left. We wanted to have the music program go forward. So that's just my input on that.
Rebecca, I think you were next, and then Barbara.
I just want to say, I think I'm probably in the minority here. I was really heartened to read all the parent feedback that we received regarding this issue. There was a lot of letters, more than that were listed in the public comment. And I very much support music education in the schools and recognize that this year has created many challenges and difficulties to music education. But I just can't reconcile myself contradicting New York State best practices regarding this issue. The school districts has advocated for changing that guidance to reflect the newer CDC recommendations, and I encourage them to continue to do so. But until that happens, I just personally do not feel comfortable deviating from New York State best practices.
Thanks, Rebecca. Barbara, and then Ben.
You're muted.
I am totally comfortable with following the CDC recommendations. Oh, am I still muted?
No, you're good.
I don't think so. Okay. I'm totally comfortable. I mean, the CDC is much more timely than our own state health department. The music associations have extended themselves and done all these scientific studies from various parts of the country where they're using adult voices and adult instrumentation, with their blowing power versus little kids. And I would certainly like to see music back in our classrooms with the singing. And, if we have enough support also to suspend the rules.
Ben? Ben, you're muted.
Good now? All right, so what I was saying was, I said last time that I'm comfortable with the move from 12 to 6 feet. I'm still comfortable with the move from 12 to 6 feet. It comes down to a policy decision. Science doesn't really tell us what we should be doing. It just tells us, the various risks that are associated with different behavior. In this case, science can tell us that the risk of infection is X at 12 feet and Y at 6 feet. And I think kind of what we're being told based on some of this new research is there's not a lot of difference between X and Y, but there's a lot of difference, in terms of conducting an orchestra and having a sound altogether between 6 feet and 12 feet and playing instruments. So I think Luciano said it last time that, the safest thing to do is, have in-person school. But we have to weigh that with the balance of, what's best for kids. And so because it is a policy decision and because according to the Albany Department of Health, it's our policy decision, I just feel in my risk assessment that it's worth it for the kids who feel it's worth it. And again, we've received a flood of support for this change through parent communications. And again, students that aren't comfortable or parents that aren't comfortable don't have to send their kids to school and they don't have to, participate in these music classes. But for those who do, I wouldn't want to deny them that.
Thanks, Ben. Kelly, then Gloria, then back to Barbara.
Thanks. I'm on the side of the unpopular decision of if we were to vote today, it would be a no, and the reason is, however, even though I feel it's super important for extracurricular activities, super important to do music and sports, all of these things. We've followed the New York State guidelines for everything else. I'm not comfortable suspending that, following up guidelines for this particular thing. So, sorry, my kid is about ready to come in my office. Excuse me, go. Thanks. Sorry. They always come in right in the middle of when I'm speaking, no other time. One of the parents said they want us to join in the request, right, to the governor's office to change that guidance. I'm 100% on board. I think they're advocating the wrong thing. I think we need to advocate for the change in the guidance, not individual groups to look at each topic on that special guidance and make a decision, yes or no, for each one. So my vote is to stick with the recommended guidance from the governor's office.
Thank you, Kelly. We've got Gloria, then Barbara.
I was a no the last time, but I've been listening a lot on the news too about the new discussion, actually about talking about 3 feet distances as we reopen school. So I think, we're moving in the right direction. I agree that New York State Department of Health has not made the jump yet, but I feel confident with some of the discussion that's going on now that I would support moving from 12 to 6. I'm sorry, 6.
Thanks, Gloria. Barbara, and then Blanca.
I think many of our fellow suburban council districts have already approved this change, correct?
Yes, to my knowledge, Bethlehem, Niskayuna, Burnt Hills. I think North Colony will be having the discussion tomorrow. South Colony is poised to make it as well. And there may be others, but those are the ones at the top of my head.
Right. Well, again, the Albany County Health Department is under the state, and yet they're saying that we certainly have the prerogative to make this decision to make this school year a little bit better for our kids, from the littlest ones on up to the ones that are wanting to perform. So again, I totally support this. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. Blanca?
After a lot of thought, I still think it's premature to decrease the distance. And I feel like we're doing really well, and I wouldn't want to jeopardize that. One case in a whole room could result, in multiple people being quarantined. And I agree with Gloria that I think we're probably headed in a direction where the distancing is going to be reduced, but I don't feel like we're there yet. And I just wouldn't feel comfortable voting in favor of the reduction. So I agree with Rebecca.
Thanks, Blanca. Pen?
I think, I forget who already, but someone was saying that, we followed New York State guidance thus far, and so why would we stop now? But what we've done is every time New York State has said, yeah, you can do something now, we've gone ahead and done it, right? So when New York State said you can have these sports, we said, all right, then we're going to have these sports, that type of thing. So, what I see is New York State saying, yes, you can do the 6 foot. We would recommend 12. But I think it's more in line with what we've been doing to increase, the flexibility and mobility of the kids in the schools in accordance with what we're allowed to do under New York State. And the other thing I'd like to mention is that, we delegate a lot of these kind of safety decisions. I mean, what exactly is happening in the schools to maintain distancing and maintain masks and maintain safety. We leave that to our administrators, and they seem to be supportive of this change. And so if they think that they can do it confidently, if our neighboring school districts think that they can do it confidently, then I would urge us to give it a try.
Thanks, Ben. Barbara, is that a new hand up? You have to unmute.
I just want to point to all the studies that have been done over the course of this last year from Sweden and other places where there weren't super strict safety measures in effect even, and that the student-to-student transmission is really been shown to be minuscule. So many of our teachers now have been vaccinated that taking away this opportunity from our kids, I think, is just unwarranted. I know, our 2 health professionals are sticking to their guns, but as I said, all the data just seems to support it, and I just want to see the kids have some fun.
Rebecca?
I'm very respectful. I know that there's different opinions on this topic and there's no right answer, but I want kids to have fun too. I think everybody here wants kids to have fun. I just know that singing and playing wind instruments expels more virus into the air, and the kids aren't vaccinated. Most of the teachers are, but not all of them are. So the risk doesn't go away. And it's just a matter of risk tolerance, like Ben was saying a few minutes ago. And that's why I just don't support it.
Thanks, Rebecca. Kelly, is that a new hand?
It is. I mean, have we looked into getting tents again? I mean, we can go outside. I mean, the sports teams did it as much as they could in the parking lots to mitigate that risk. I mean, can we start looking at pushing that? I don't know what the best practice is, tents with size outsides, whatever we can do to decrease that risk without breaking the best practices guidelines? Like, what kind of thoughts do they have around that? Like, have we talked to the music teachers about what we could do, except having 6 feet distance in, our rooms with limited ventilation,
Well, I know Mr. Winans is looking at space at Tawasentha for performances, so they can be outside. I mean, I know we had a touch of spring last week. We're in the deep freeze again. So we're having all kinds of conversations about using outdoor spaces more. It's just not exactly feasible just yet because of the weather. And the other piece of this is that, the teachers need time to rehearse with the students. So it's not as if you can open the opportunity and then they're ready to perform, especially this year when they've been really piecemealing their playing experiences between, being far apart, but also every other day, only half the students are in the ensemble and the other half are participating in a Google Meet, and it's very, very disjointed. So in order to really bring the group together, they feel they need to bring the group together. Bob has texted me and reminded me that Scotia Glenville was the other district that approved it. He also reminded me that the mandate under New York State is 6 feet. It's this other column where they talked about recommended best practices, but we would not be violating any New York State mandate. We wouldn't do that. But I understand and respect, I respect all of your positions. Blanca?
My understanding, I did a little research over the weekend, is the Empire State Youth Orchestra. They're still doing the 12 feet and it's been successful for them. So I don't know. I think, have you heard any discussion of them reducing it? Because the parents I spoke with had not heard that they're even contemplating that.
I haven't heard that.
Okay. And again, agreeing with Rebecca, but also adding that we do have, mutations of the virus, and we're in a race to get as many people as we can vaccinated to get herd immunity, and the pediatric population isn't vaccinated yet. So again, I just feel like it's premature. We don't know if things are going to mutate. We don't know if we're going to reach herd immunity in time. We don't know when the peds are getting vaccinated. I just don't want to risk it. So I'm still leaning towards no, with sincere apologies. I will be disappointing my own kids. So,
Barbara?
I guess I just want to reiterate that, our administrators have looked into this really carefully. I just heard now here at the do say the 6th, and all neighboring districts are doing it. Again, I just really want us to consider the kids. The teachers are on board. We have so many parents that have written to us and said, the kids want this, we want this for our children. And I just can't see denying them that opportunity on a what if or something might happen basis. As I said, to me, it was compelling, the scientific evidence as to the amount of particulate matter that adults put out. Reminder to everybody that all these kids are wearing, I don't know if you've seen them, they have these masks where their little clarinets go through, then they have another mask on the ball of the clarinet and all the wind instruments. So all these safety measures are there. Everybody is dying to go. So as I said, I just hope we can approve it tonight.
Seema?
I wanted to see if there was interest in suspending the rules to vote, but I first wanted to see if Judy or Luciano had anything they wanted to add before I asked that.
Yes, I'm still finding this very difficult. I guess I could go, from the 12 feet to the 6 feet because of the federal guidelines, but I appreciate what people have said, Rebecca and Blanca and Ben or Kelly about the difficulty. And I agree. I think this is very difficult, but I would vote in favor of it. Not the 3 feet at this point, but the 6 feet.
So my position has not changed the last meeting. I'm in favor of it. I find it kind of ironic that the entire state of Texas, on the date of our last meeting, got rid of their statewide mask mandate. And other states have since followed suit. And that's not what I'm arguing for. I'm not saying we shouldn't be wearing masks, but my point is that state by state, guidance varies immensely. So because New York State has a best practice doesn't mean that it's going to be necessarily the best practice. So I actually I really thought about this, and to help me kind of visualize what was going on, I went to my garage and I got a tape measure, and I actually laid it out at 12 feet, and visualizing that and realizing that that was just a radius. We're talking about a 24-foot diameter around the kids. It really shows how restrictive this is. You cannot fit many people in a room. You need a massive space to even have a small group of people gathered. So the main concern is aerosols spreading. So the study that was provided to us showed how effective the masks and the bell covers were at preventing the spread of these aerosols. So with that research in mind, and with the support of the students and the faculty who are going to be taking this risk, I don't have a problem with the 6 feet of distancing. And Gloria mentioned it too. There's now been a study that showed in some Massachusetts schools that even 3 feet was safe. So I don't think we're taking a massive risk by going to 6 feet. I think it's still very safe. We're taking the necessary precautions, and if the students and staff are willing to undertake that risk, then we should not be preventing them.
All right, so, oh, Blanca, you have your hand raised? Is that, no? Okay. So I'm gonna ask if there's any interest in having, oh, I need to lower my hand, sorry. For a motion to suspend the rules so we can vote. Blanca, second Gloria. Okay, all in favor? This is to suspend the rules. Barb, did you vote? Frozen. Okay, so passes 8-0.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay, passes 9-0. Is there a motion to pass the resolution? Is there a resolution that we need to have?
I didn't include a formal resolution, but I have one handy.
Okay.
And I will paraphrase that the board adopts therefore be it resolved that the board adopts the guidance of the CDC for its music program and will allow students to participate in the music program as long as bell covers are used for all wind instruments, masks are worn by all students when singing, and there's at least 6 feet of distancing between students at all times.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wells. So can I have a motion to approve that resolution? Oh, well, we can talk about it in a second. Gloria, or Judy, second Barb. Any comments or questions? Go ahead, Blanca.
So I thought that the CDC said greater than 6. I thought they were just like awkwardly vague. Did they say exactly 6?
I said at least 6 feet
At least,
distancing.
okay. And then I have another question. Do you want an hour later? Before the vote would be better.
Well, we're gonna vote on it. So
right. So there's been an argument that like 12 feet was sort of plucked from the sky. And I guess I don't really disagree with that point. So I guess what I'm wondering, Rebecca, is there any compromise between 12 to, between 12 and 6? That way we're over 6, but not at 12, to the point
So
that
I think
Luciano made.
I think, Blanca, this is the point. Like, we're not epidemiologists here. We're not going to do our own experiments. So we're at the mercy of guidelines. And the New York State best practice is 12 feet.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, so all in favor to pass this resolution? So I need to see hands. So it's me, Gloria, Luciano, Judy, Ben, and Barb. That's 6. All nays. Kelly, Rebecca, and Blanca. So it passes 6-3. I'm sorry, Barb, you were a little delayed, so I didn't know if you were saying something.
No, just yes.
Yes, yep, I got you. So the resolution passes 6-3.
And that's the end of my report, Seema.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Wells. Next is board president information. The first item is the superintendent's budget presentation with Q&A coming up. So just a reminder that the superintendent's draft budget presentation for the 21-22 school year will take place at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, March 23rd, and will include a Q&A period for members of the Board of Education. The Board of Ed has also established a budget workshop that will be held at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, March 30th. The session will also include a Q&A for the community. Details for submitting questions are forthcoming. The next item is the Capital Region BOCES meeting. The annual meeting of the Capital Region BOCES is scheduled for Wednesday, April 14th, 2021, and will be live streamed at 5:30 p.m. Board members are interested in attending, please let Board Clerk Linda Livingston know. For your info, our special board meeting scheduled to take place Wednesday, April 21st at 8 a.m. is the date selected to vote on the 21-22 BOCES budget and election. So if you haven't done this before, we're going to have a board meeting on April 21st at 8 a.m. so we can vote on their budget and election. And my last item is the upcoming Board of Education election. Petitions are available through the district clerk for any district resident who might be considering running for the board. It's 82 signatures now that are required on the 2019 election. There are 3 3-year terms on the board that begin July 1st, 2021. In order to be eligible to run for the Board of Ed, nominated petitions with 82 or more signatures from qualified voters in the district must be submitted to the district clerk on or before April 19th by 5 p.m. Anyone who has questions about the duties and responsibilities of a board member may contact the superintendent, board president, or any member of the board. The candidate must be able to read and write, be at least 18 years of age, a qualified voter, and a district resident for at least 1 year prior to the date of the vote on Tuesday, May 18th. Further qualifications and info in the packet available is through the district clerk. Okay, so that's all I have. Next, we have action items. And first we have superintendent action, Dr. Wiles.
So I have 2 items this evening. The first is our pandemic continuity of operations plan. This is a new requirement that was put into law back in the fall, requiring all public employers, including schools, to have a plan in place to do what we just or are currently living through. So I shared with you on Friday our pandemic continuity of operations plan, and would like to recommend for the board to approve it this evening to be attached to our safe school safety plan, our SAVE plan.
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the pandemic operations plan? Judy? Second, Gloria? Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
It passes 9-0.
Thank you, everyone. My second item is a follow-up to our calendar adoption. One of the holidays in our now adapted 21-22 calendar is the holiday of Juneteenth. And Juneteenth is a new holiday in the state of New York. However, not all of our bargaining agreements have had the opportunity to get current with a new law to actually name Juneteenth as a paid holiday. So this resolution recognizes the fact that we have some employees whose employment agreements with the district don't name this date. So our plan would be to address that as negotiations come up. But in the meantime, we want to have authorization to provide this holiday for those groups. And this is largely our 12-month employees. So the resolution says, whereas the state of New York has added the new holiday of Juneteenth, June 19th of each year, to the list of required New York State holidays, and whereas this addition will first impact the Guilderland Central School District for the 21-22 school calendar year, is that it will fall on a Sunday, which means it must be celebrated on June 20th, 2022. And whereas the Board of Education wishes to honor this new holiday while recognizing there may be impacts to collective bargaining agreements, which set forth specific paid holidays, which do not at this time reflect the Juneteenth holiday, it is hereby resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, employees be provided with the ability to have Juneteenth as a paid holiday on June 20th, 2022, in addition to any other contractually required paid holidays without any prior need to amend any collective bargaining agreements. For those bargaining units with collective bargaining agreements that address paid holidays, the issue of Juneteenth as a paid holiday will be discussed in a reasonable period of time at or before the expiration of any existing collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the Juneteenth resolution? Blanca, second Rebecca. Any questions or comments?
Does this mean that it's not a holiday in 2021, that the holiday recognition, not just in Guilderland, but everywhere, starts in 2022?
It actually exists now, but it falls on a Saturday in 2021. So it's observed on the Saturday, but when a holiday falls on a Sunday, we're required to observe it on the Monday. I learned that new in this case too, to be honest with you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wiles. Next, we have board president action. We have a list of policies here, A through, let's see, P. So can I have a motion to approve the agendas A through P? Ben, second Barb. Any questions or comments? Barb, you have your hand raised?
I do.
Okay.
Two of the policies are missing, and you were going to take a look at them apparently. But we haven't gotten any feedback from anybody in the public that didn't like them. I was wondering why they weren't on the agenda.
Oh,
It
so
was harassment, and go ahead.
I shared them with the subcommittee and the Equity and Diversity Committee, but there was one response and there was a couple of people who still had questions. So I told Dr. Wiles that I would put their feedback together and then send it back and we could address it at the next meeting, since there was no reason for it to be pushed through quickly. I think there were some questions about the on.
Oh, at our next meeting or at your next meeting?
No, at the next board meeting.
Oh, okay, but you'll pass the questions on to us then?
Yes, yep, there were some. Yep, there were some questions about the online harassment piece, but I think that might overlap with other policies we already have. So we can just clarify that. I can email you when I email Dr. Wiles.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Barb. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? It passes 9-0. And that is it for board president action. Next, we have board committee reports. We'll start with policy.
We haven't met. We'll meet, I think, on April 16th.
Okay, thank you, Barb. Business practices?
We haven't met and we don't have a date set for another meeting.
Okay. Thanks, Judy. Communications?
Yes, we met on March 3rd. We had a couple of topics, one of them being how to engage the community in the 21-22 budget year. We reviewed the activities that we did last year. We talked about the infographic and the letter to the editor and a number of things that we wanted to carry over for this year. For the 21-22 budget development, we also had launched a thought exchange, 3 thought exchanges, in fact, and the board, I think, recently completed its thought exchange. So we'll be looking at the results of that as we move forward. Other ideas we want to continue include the board president writing a letter on behalf of the district about the budget to the enterprise, Louds Fund Enterprise, continuing to use regular board meetings to update the community on the budget development process, to expand the use of social media to drive community members to go to our website and because we have all information there regarding the budget. And instead of doing a newsletter mailing on the budget, since we just had one winter mailing in mid-March, we are going to go ahead and do again the extra large postcard mailing instead of a newsletter. And that would inform the community about major aspects of the upcoming budget. We, of course, at that time, we're talking about concern around the federal relief package, whether there would be one, but we're past that, thank goodness. And I also suggested that perhaps whenever we talk about the upcoming budget presentation, that we make it clear to the public that Dr. Wiles will also be talking about how next year might look, including in-person learning, regular schedules, things like that. So it's important the public know that that's going to be part of that presentation. Second item, a big item we talked about was school start time. Marie's shared the draft of the revised school start time schedule from March, a year ago, when the task force committee's work was put on hold as a result of course, school closing and the pandemic. Marie reported that she will be convening the school start time task force in the next week or so to review previous plans and determine what might be possible for the upcoming school year. I suggested that we need to get information out to the community as soon as possible regarding any decisions or suggestions so that the public has a chance to raise concerns and point out any pluses or minuses regarding any proposed plan. Dr. Wiles pointed out that next year we will need to adjust the start times as we return to a more normal schedule. The high school will not be starting at 10:10 next year. And Judy Slack reminded us, everyone, of the importance of transparency as we talk about coming back to the normal schedule. There will be questions to consider regarding school social distancing on buses and at school, mask wearing, etc. And that could affect bus ridership and things like that. Dr. Wiles also reported that the Transportation Department is refining the routes that were associated with the draft we looked at, and they hope the Transportation Department hopes to make those routes even more efficient. And we'll get an update as soon as that task force has met. Our next meeting is April 14th at 2:30.
Thank you, Gloria. Are all of those in the minutes? There was some good info in there.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next,
Seema, I just want to point out that that task force is meeting tomorrow.
okay, thank you. Next, we have audit. Ben?
Your next audit committee meeting will be on March 22nd at 8 a.m.
Thank you. And equity and diversity, Kelly?
There hasn't been a meeting since our last board meeting. The committees are working through their small groups, and we have another meeting scheduled on 24th of March at 7 p.m.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Oops, sorry. Next, we have public comment number 2. Do we have any other public comments, Linda? No? Okay. We got them all. And last, board issues, ideas, and sharing. Does anybody have anything to share?
I
I have one
really
question.
quick.
Oh, go ahead, Luciana.
Okay, thank you. Does the resolution that we passed also apply to like phys ed and gym class? If they're, are they still under the 12-foot distancing rules?
The resolution only included music. We haven't had the same kind of research studies or information around the PE. I think we still need to do some homework around that. The difference is we can still do PE in some manner, shape, or form in a way that we couldn't do music. So we're continuing to look at that.
All right, thank you.
Kelly?
Hey Marie, what regarding kind of opening of school next year, has there been any discussion around testing of students? I know we had one set of random of our testing that went great. Is that going to be an ongoing thing, or should it be an ongoing thing, or what's the deal with that?
You're correct. We did one round of random testing, and actually, I think we tested more students and faculty and staff than any other school district in the area, close to 1,000. I think it was 950. Right now, we don't have more plans to do random testing. We just got word that our Binex rapid tests are good through July. They have an expiration date on them. So we have them. Right now, we don't feel a strong need to use them. That might change. Some of that could be tied to guidance that we get regarding large groups. So, things like proms and graduations, and I don't know. So we're holding on to them as a resource in case we need them. And then as for the fall, you have to begin planning, and you'll see this on Tuesday. You have to build a budget based on certain assumptions. So we're planning for September to be all kids back in school every day on buses, participating in all the things that we have always done. Because one thing that we have learned is that if we can't do that in September, we have learned how to pivot to do something different. But you have to decide this is what we're going to plan for. So that's what you'll see on Tuesday.
And so that means no 100% like we were a year ago, or 2 years ago at this point. That means no thought about random testing, even as we all come back together as a precaution at this point.
Not at this point. Doesn't mean it won't come up, but we haven't gotten that far.
Thanks.
Blanca, do you have a question?
So Marie, you're not considering planning for a remote option for folks or for students who might live with people who can't get the vaccine for medical reasons, or students who themselves are high risk because they have underlying comorbidities. I just feel like it might be prudent to still offer that, especially because we don't know when kids are going to be vaccinated.
Well, one of the things to keep in mind is really the only reason we're offering a remote option now is because we're still in a state of emergency. Under typical state ed commissioner's regulations, there is no such thing as remote education. So we would need some kind of guidance between now and then to say the state of emergency is lifted and there is an expectation that you provide remote instruction for the populations that you just described. So at this time, we don't have any basis to plan for it. Now, I can tell you off to the side, we're all thinking about it. Like, well, what if we're asked to do this, and how can it best be done? And does it make sense for 700 school districts in New York State to try to recreate that for what I would assume is going to be a much smaller number of students who, if allowed, may have that option? So we've talked as a region about potentially offering remote instruction regionally is a far more cost-effective way to provide that instruction if it's allowed and if it's required, and those are big ifs right now. But for right today, we're planning as if everyone is going to be back.
So who do I need to petition in order outside of our district um, to push for that?
I'm not even sure, because I heard a very interesting comment that I'm still struggling with comprehending, which was that no one ever said we had to offer a remote options. And I'm thinking, really? I thought it was pretty clear that we needed to provide a full range of options for students. So you can try the governor, the commissioner, the health departments, US DOE. I'm not even sure what to say there, Blanca, but those are the usual places where that kind of discussion would happen.
Thank you. I just think it's a valuable option to have even after the pandemic, to be honest with you. We have our two students that we're wearing the shirts in honor of. I think one of them has been learning remotely through this illness. I just think it's something good to have. The other option of having them tutored and things like that, I don't feel like it's as good as having a long-term option like this. Those other options are kind of piecemeal along the way. I know because one of my children had to have that. And also some students have really been quite successful with the remote learning. Not all of them, not the majority, but some of them really have. I don't know, I feel like this was a lesson for us that we're capable of doing that, and that perhaps having students be remote as opposed to being homeschooled is better for them because they get to be part of this community. It can be very lonely being a homeschooled student. So anyway, my 2 cents. I will find somebody to petition. Thanks.
Sure thing.
Any other comments or questions? I just have, oh, go ahead, Luciano.
Okay, so about the upcoming elections, I'd like to propose that, so there's a signature requirement, and those signatures have to be gathered in person. I'd like to propose that since, we're in the middle of the pandemic, we allow candidates to get these signatures electronically. So we'd still keep the signature requirement, and they still have to be registered voters in the district, but we allow signatures to be gathered electronically so that we're not having people go door to door soliciting signatures.
Did I freeze? No. Are you suggesting that it's for our district, or I don't know if Linda or Neil can answer in terms of who you would petition to change that? Because I don't think that's
Well, do we need to petition anybody? I think we run our own elections in the district. I don't know. Well, I don't know for sure, but
We
Yes, that would be great.
we are following the law, the election law for school districts in regard to that process. So that's a New York State education law requirement that would have to be amended. As of right now, I'm not aware that there's been any sort of amendment as what you're describing, Luciano. But certainly we can reach out to our attorney and just make sure that there's no other, that option isn't available or it is available. Be happy to do that.
Okay, if you could, that'd be great. Thank you.
any other. Oh, go ahead, Blanca.
Sorry, I just have a comment that I thought it was, I think it was not a good idea to have the signature requirement at all. I know because I'm a case investigator still and a contact tracer that there are folks who are still very much quarantined or positive right now. And so the fact that we have positive folks with COVID or quarantine folks and we're knocking potentially on their doors asking for signatures, I'm surprised that the state, high state, if you're watching, I'm surprised by your decision and disappointed. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? I'll just add, I would love to know if digital was an option. I should have asked, I guess, before I spent my Sunday out in the wind and cold getting signatures, but that would be awesome. I have one more comment, but Rebecca, did you have your hand up or is that from before?
No, I had my hand up, and this is, I don't know if this is the right time or place, but I just wanted to comment on the public comment from earlier, just with my own personal opinion on it. This is again my personal opinion, but the committee is called the Equity and Diversity Committee for a reason. Our district's mission is to empower all kids to succeed. And that's what we've been doing, and that's what we'll continue to do. But the point, in my opinion, of that committee is to address the fact that people of color have been treated as less valuable for centuries. And to focus on people of color with this specific committee is not to say that other children don't matter. It's really about focus and not exclusion. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Rebecca. My comment also had to do with that letter. So a lot of times we get public comments right before the meeting. So I was working up to 5:30 and we had executive session at 6. So I really didn't even get a chance to read through that full letter before it was read at the meeting. But I see, there's some comments in there that were, I guess, maybe valuable to talk about. But I saw the whole letter because this is not the first time that Dr. Mike DeLuke, DDS, has written, that I see that as, kind of a roadblock to do this type of work in this new committee. So a couple things is that this committee is trying to gather the data. There's already data that exists at the district, but it's never been gathered together to share. So that is the point of the committee. And then second, I don't think anything that's worth doing is ever easy. So, I'm not shocked getting letters like this. It doesn't make it easier, but that doesn't mean we're going to stop doing that work. Any other comments or questions? Can I get a motion? Barb?
I was just going to say, I think the thing that I got from that letter was communication, transparency, and inclusion, of as many citizens as we can, so we get as many opinions as we can.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Barb, second. Rebecca, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Passes 9-0. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Night.
Have a good night.